Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the latest from Blind Equation, A Funeral in Purgatory, out July 18th on Prosthetic Records. This album has 11 tracks, 33 minutes in length, and this is the band's third full-length studio album. They are an American cybergrind band. From a design and overall structure standpoint, this album is a result of itself. What I mean by that is that the album is very chaotic in how it presents each and every single song. You could say it's chaotic in the experience that overall offers, and then it's chaotic in terms of how it structures itself. I don't think you could structure the album in any other way and still not feel this overall chaos that exists within the album. And this chaos is not necessarily a negative experience or a negative element of the record. It's just part and parcel with what the sound and what the atmosphere of the album is all about. It's a little bit about chaos, and then it's about how much you can control that chaos. Now, from a design standpoint, the way they controlled it, or at least the way they tried to minimize it, was by keeping the record short. 11 songs, 33 minutes, definitely adds to the playability of the album. It definitely makes the chaos a lot more entertaining, a lot more engaging, and overall it makes the album feel a little bit more complete. It does add fluidity to the record, so it's an interesting way to assimilate that chaos into the overall design of the album, into the overall experience, and somehow allow the listener to feel comfortable in it. Now, once you get into the sound of this album, if you're not familiar with the band and you press play on this record, I think you're going to be somewhat surprised. At least I was. This is my first experience with the band, and listening to this record, I was not expecting the experience that they've created, the chaos that ensues with every single song. It's not the synths that surprised me, or the overused of the synths. This is a super electronic EDM, I would go even as far as to say almost techno sounding album. At least that's its main spinal cord, that's its main influence of sound throughout each and every single song. That wasn't the part that surprised me. The part that surprised me is how they're able to incorporate that into a sound that at times feels heavy, very metal, if you will, with some doom elements, with some black metal elements. It's a very hybrid and fluid experience sonically that always has a sense of consistency as far as the electronic backdrop is concerned. When you put all of this together, at times you create a very interesting atmosphere. The songs take you almost in a dreamlike state style journey where everything is real and yet it's not. It's very cyber inducing. It's a very sci-fi driven from an atmospheric standpoint style record, and that's where my surprise came in. How they were able to bring all of these different pieces, or I would say different influences, into the picture and create something that at the surface and overall, like I said, feels chaotic, but at the end of the day it has a sense of purpose, it has a sense of direction. That is where my surprise came in. And the more that I listened to the record, the more used to I became to the sound, the better I became at deciphering this record, and the more I felt comfortable in the overall experience. So it's a sound for those that are not familiar with the band, or they're not huge fans of EDM. It might be a little bit hard to digest at times, but I think if you are a fan of this style, of this sound, even industrial metal, if you're a fan of that genre, I think this is going to be a record that it's going to open some interesting doors, if you will. It has some interesting elements from a soundscape point of view, but even when it comes to the vocals, I honestly enjoyed the vocal performance on this album. The harshness, the heaviness, the intensity, with a few cameos here and there in order to break away from that sense of consistency that exists. But I think the most important aspect of the vocal performance is that was very connected with the mood of the song, with the lyrical content of the song, and also to where the song is taking you musically. So I felt like there was some nuances to the vocal delivery, but overall there is a sense of consistency, which makes the album an absolute trip with no conventional norms attached to it. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with The Eternal Curse because that's how the album starts, and I think this song is really important for the listener of the record, specifically for the listener that's never really came across this band before. Because this is the one that opens the album, and it opens the album in a way that kind of sets the tone for what the whole record is going to be. This track has this huge electronic EDM synthesizer sound permanently weaved into every single other element. But it still finds a way to bring some heaviness into the forefront, specifically when you talk about the drums. The drum sound on this track adds a metal spice to the overall electronic backdrop of the track. And then you have the heaviness of the vocals. And it's a track that morphs, grows, moves, very fluid. But it really showcases the two sides, maybe even three sides I should say, of this record. It illustrates the more electronic side of the record, illustrates the more metal, heavier side of the record, and then it also illustrates the vocal dynamics that this album offers. Next we have A Funeral. This track is very doomy. For a track that has a very emphasized synth sound, that it starts off by feeling very melancholic even within that synth sound, and then you see this growth in the sound and the development of the sound morphing into something a little bit warmer, a little bit bigger. I thought it was a really interesting track because the mood that it sets at the beginning, sonically and vocally, because vocally the vocals come across almost like a cry for help as the song starts off. So it has that very dark, doomy experience, but then it brightens up, it opens up, it becomes a much different track as it progresses. But what doesn't become different is that mood, that tone that is set right at the start really stays with the song. So that doom experience goes from being very predominant in the forefront to becoming more of a layer as the track develops forward. Last but definitely not least, Relinquished Dreams. This is, in my opinion, the heaviest song on the record, consistently heavy, start to finish. Obviously, there are pockets of the track that are not as heavy, that actually open up into this EDM style sound. So that is still there, the synths are still there, all of those elements are still there. But when you look at the vocal performance, the heaviness of the vocals, how heavy the vocals get on this track, and overall the drum sound and the overall heaviness of the song, regardless of how many pockets it has, it still is the heaviest song that the album has to offer, the one that has more consistency as far as that heaviness is concerned, both on the musical and vocal side. And because of that, it really stands out. You really feel at times like you're listening more to an industrial track, a really heavy industrial track than anything else. Really great song. I love the vocals and I love how far they push them on this specific track. This is it, Blind Equation with A Funeral in Purgatory. Once again, on July 18th on Prosthetic Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band. Hit me up in the comment section. I'll see you all in the next video. Take care, guys.